Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Jim Ewing with ProVision Solutions. We've enjoyed sharing insights, inspiration, and informative updates through our Marketplace Ministries events. Whether in person or virtual, there's been a wealth of great resources provided. Here's a segment that we're pleased to share with you now. Details are provided in the comments below, along with information on staying informed of upcoming events and interacting with others online. We trust you'll enjoy this segment and invite you to be a part of our Marketplace Ministries Network. We'd love to have you as part of our collaborative Christian community. Thanks. And now, here's our presentation. Our experienced business panel. How about if I introduce them to you now? In the material that was sent out and the registration, there was in fact a lot of information about our three panel members, but very briefly, let me try to just capture some of it. Randy Wolgemuth is a John Maxwell Certified Coach and active business owner. He's a serial entrepreneur, several businesses that he's been involved in. Randy is the National Director for the Christian Business Ministries Canada, CBMC, and Randy enjoys connecting with business people from across the country. Our second panel member is a gentleman named Tony Webbink. Tony currently serves as both Ministry Ambassador in Alberta and British Columbia for In Touch Ministries of Canada. That's Dr. Charles Stanley, a familiar name in Christian circles. And he's also Regional Director for the CCBF, the Canadian Christian Business Federation. And both of these organizations, Randy's as well as Tony, the one that he's connected with, we've enjoyed wonderful working relationships with members and with the organizations over the years, but in particular, this challenging year that we've just had. So Tony has been active in a number of areas of faith development, church engagement, pastoral care, global relief and development for several ministry-focused organizations. The third member of our panel, I was chatting with him just before. Jordan, I know you've got a busy life with real estate. A lot of things are happening there. You were telling me the market is very, very active. Thanks for being with us here tonight. Jordan leads Team Sites, Urban Life, YEG Pro Realty. Now that's a handful. He probably needs 2 business cards to get that all on, but it's
double-sided.
Both sided. Okay, terrific. Yeah. You're based in Edmonton, but you also work closely through this process with your father and with your father-in-law, which is an interesting dynamic, I'm sure. Jordan was born and raised in Edmonton, and after high school, he spent several years working in the trucking industry and even operated his own trucking company for a period of time. So he's got a lot of business-related experience. He attended the King's University in Edmonton, earning a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the Leaders School of Business, and you came highly recommended, Jordan, by a gentleman who's helping us here tonight. So good to have a number of the faculty from the King's University with us here tonight. So that is the panel that we're working with. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us here. We have a number of questions, but having given that illustrious introduction to each of you, I don't know if there's anything more to add. Check the bio, check them out on LinkedIn or whatever platform they happen to be on. I'm going to ask the first question to our panel members. And the first one is, why is excellence? Why is excellence and customer service excellence so important? That's an important question. And Randy, why don't we start out with you, since I introduced you first? Why don't you give us a little bit of a comment with respect to that?
Well, there's a number of reasons, and I mean, obviously, good service gets you more business, which is kind of the crux of the whole thing. But there's more to it than that. And one of them is an experience I had many years ago when I went to I was flying through Minneapolis, and I like Diet Pepsi and I like Diet Pepsi more than Diet Coke, but there's a McDonald's there, and I went in there to just buy a Diet Coke. And so the girl brought me to my Diet Coke, and I was going to pay her with Canadian money, and she said, "I'm sorry, we don't take Canadian money." And I said, "Well, that's all I got." And I can tell I was a little annoyed inside. I mean, we're literally pretty close to Canada already. They won't take my money. And I said, "Well, that's all I have, ma'am. I guess I'll just have to leave my Diet Coke here then." And she just said, "Can you just wait 1 minute, sir?" sure. And so she went to the back, and I didn't really know what she was doing other than, I guess, checking with the boss or whatever. But anyway, she came back very soon, and she says, well, sir, I'm sorry, but I still can't take your Canadian money. However, we'd like to just give you this Diet Coke and have a great day. And, this happened like 25 years ago. And I've told that story hundreds of times. And I'm not saying you should all go to McDonald's, but having said that, I mean, what I really was impressed with is that girl had been trained enough to go and talk to her supervisor to see what should happen, right? And I think that's, we can talk about customer excellence, but our people that work with us or work for us, they also need to be trained so they can respond in a way that's pleasing to the end user, right? So that's a reason, and I've told that story many, many times, and it made my day.
Working well on the West Coast, how would you respond to that first question?
All right. Well, like Randy, I'm thrilled to be here. It's nice to see a few familiar faces. My friend Ron there in Calgary, Ron and Terry, there's a few people there that I recognize. And it's good to actually put a face to the name, Pete Peters, because I think you and I have probably corresponded. I know a number of people at the Christian Credit Union, so it's good to actually put a face to the name.
Yeah, I thought I recognized your name. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny. Customer service. Start with a story, because speaking of the Christian Credit Union, I've been a member of the Christian Credit Union. Goodness, probably since I was 6. I remember when the Christian Credit Union used to come to the Christian schools once a week, and we could withdraw and put money into the bank, which gave the kids a wonderful experience of what it was like to do our banking. But I've been a member there for so many years, and I worked in a number of different capacities. And one of the jobs that I had was actually traveling, taking care of quite a large region, all of Alberta. And it's a lot of distance to travel from one end of the province to the other. I lived in Calgary at the time, and I drove down to Lethbridge and realized at lunchtime, because I went to get something to eat, that I had forgotten my wallet at home in Calgary. And I couldn't buy lunch, obviously, but what worried me most was I couldn't actually put gas in the truck to drive back to Calgary. So I phoned up my friend at the Christian Credit Union, who I've known for quite a number of years, and explained my situation. She knows me well. Her family is some of my best friends. And she said, oh, hey, no problem, Tony. Just go to the Christian Credit Union in Lethbridge. We'll have another debit card for you. And I walked into the Christian Credit Union in Lethbridge, and the person managing it was somebody that I knew originally from the Christian Credit Union in Edmonton. And she said, hi. She knew my name. She remembered me from 20 years earlier. And I was able to get a new debit card, fill up my truck, and be able to get home. That to me is good customer service. And not only because, it's a community, the Christian Credit Union really is. And it's a community that I, grew up in for so many years. But I don't know that there's any other banking institution, any other financial institution where you could phone somebody, go to another branch, and have a bank card waiting for you solely based on a personal relationship. And that to me is a real definition of true customer service. And when I think about this question and why excellence and customer service excellence is so important, I've worked in marketing advertising for a number of years. And so from a marketing advertising perspective, I realized that you've got to have 26 impressions before somebody remembers your name. People buy because they have a need or it's based on emotion. And so, in marketing, one of the exercises we do is, you need tires, for instance. It's something everybody can relate to. What are the first 5 tire company names that you can think of? And those are, that's kind of that's the impressions-based part of marketing and service. But when you actually need tires, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the first place that comes to mind where you've maybe had the best customer service before, or they've checked your tires and it was free, or you've been referred because somebody else had great customer service. So I think based on that perspective, from a marketing advertising sort of perspective, it just makes sense to do our businesses and do them well, because that's how people learn about what we do. Beyond that, being that I have worked in ministry for 20 some years, and I'm the regional director for CCBF. I think the bigger question here is, as believers, we have an opportunity to reflect the values that we hold most dear. And, when I think about that, the Bible says, whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, whatever you do everything to the glory of God. That doesn't necessarily talk about business, but I think there's a huge opportunity there to mirror what we believe, what the values that we hold the most dear as believers. And one of the passages I looked up, the Bible has a lot to say about excellence and integrity and honesty. And one of the passages that I looked up was Psalm 112, verse 5. And it says, "It will go well for the one who generously lends money and conducts his business honestly." And I think, to me, that really equates to customer service excellence. That is, if we're conducting our businesses with integrity and honesty, we put the customers first. And that is how, not only how business grows, but I think that's how our influence as Christ's representatives grows. So.
Good. Thank you so much, Tony.
Absolutely.
Jordan, let's get you into the mix here.
Okay, so why is excellence and customer service excellence so important? Really, at the end of the day, all we really have is our memories of past experience. So when I think of customer service excellence, everybody only has their memory of the past and moving forward into the future. So if the memory is poor or the experience was poor, that's what you'll be remembered by. So trying to make a memorable customer experience is the key in my books. So
definitely, you want to make a positive impression and leave that with the people that you've been working with. So important in all of these different aspects and facets that the three of you are involved in. So let's move on to the second question here. I asked you if you think about, is there an experience that you could perhaps share with us? And some of that has already been expressed. Randy, I appreciated the one you talked about going into a fast food place and having them demonstrate excellence in service. But is there an experience that you could share with us that demonstrates customer service excellence? And that could, I was talking about whether or not that could in fact be internal to an organization that you're a part of, or maybe it's external to an external customer. It could go either way. You have internal customers and external customers, but is there an example that you could maybe share with us? Jordan, let's come back to you first. I've got you on my screen.
Last summer, I ended up selling a property for a gentleman who really needed it gone. And he had bought it about 7 or 8 years prior. And the agent who ended up bringing us the offer on his property was the list agent when he purchased the property. And when she contacted me, she said, "Jordan, has the seller taken care of these issues?" Because there was a number of issues with respect to the real property report and compliance, because supposedly the house was sitting 3 feet over the neighbor's property line. So at that point in time, we didn't have all of the details, but I discovered that that particular client of mine had obtained in years prior about $7,000 or $8,000 in consideration for the issue, because he accepted it when he bought the property because it came up at closing. And to put a transaction together or put a deal together, I had to dig really hard to figure out what could be done to resolve the issue, because there were people that were adamant that the house was on the lot, on the property. It wasn't sitting over this property line. So I started pulling neighboring titles and registrations and things like that. And I ended up discovering 2 different surveys that completely conflicted. So that's when I gathered the idea that I could just call the title insurance company and see if they would provide a policy. So in the end, instead of, having to give somebody great consideration just to take this property off of our hands, it cost us $125 in title insurance, and away we went. So I guess it's kind of a flip side, because the other agent on the other side was in the same position 7 or 8 years prior and could have done the digging then, but didn't. So I guess it's just an example of, when you're faced with something, how far you really want to take it or how you want to go about it. So if you're going to provide good customer service, you have to keep asking why, and you've got to keep digging. So so often I find in this business or any other business, a lot of people just want an answer so they can move on and make a paycheck. So they don't really want to truly understand what's going on.
Sounds like you had one happy customer by the time you went through that process, and it only cost them less than $200.
Yeah, exactly. So
excellent.
No,
Could have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah, it could have been. Well, he would, if we didn't pull that off, he wouldn't have sold his place.
Mm-hmm. Tony, let's go to you. What's your example? Is there another one that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I can think of a number of different examples of both good and bad customer service. And so I'm going to give you an example of bad customer service, because this one really, as I walked through or looked at these questions, it was something that came to mind. My wife and I, 2 Christmases ago, were out shopping for Christmas presents. And we wanted to buy a specific pair of Converse running shoes for our son. And so we went into one of the trendy stores that sells Converse running shoes. And the very young person there, we're in a mall. And first of all, I don't completely understand wearing a toque in a mall. I grew up in Alberta. I get the concept of a toque. But inside, I don't quite understand. That's trendy now, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But this person came over, and I would say probably late teens, early 20s. Didn't take her hands out of her pockets. We asked about the shoes that we were looking for. And with her foot, she pointed at the shoe rack and said, "Well, they're right over there." And we actually left and thought, I can't even buy shoes here. Like, I really, seriously, it just, that when I look at the faces on the screen here, we're all of a generation where I think we have work ethic. And I think, common sense is something that we were taught. I know, the values that I have in work is passed down from other jobs and from mentors and from parents. And that just isn't something that you see necessarily nowadays. And my wife and I have 3 children in their 20s who all have incredible work ethic. And I'm so glad, because that's not necessarily something you see. And sometimes I recognize that it's, I try not to get upset, because it's often not the person's, I shouldn't say it's not their fault, but it's not their fault, because nobody's taught employees how to have customer service, how to do things with excellence, how to actually go the extra mile, how to, like Jordan was saying, take the time to investigate, right? Like ask some questions. So that really, that's an example for me that kind of sticks out of the opposite of good customer service, where it actually cost that store and that particular employee the cost of a sale, a pair of running shoes that we were going to buy anyway. And we did. We just bought them at a different store.
And at the price of running shoes nowadays, that would have been a big sale.
Well, they're significant. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tony. That's a great story. And you can put me on your Christmas shopping list next time too. I'll send you the shoe size later.
All right.
Randy, let's try you and see how you can maybe give us another example. You gave us one already, but let's go to you.
The example I want to use, I would say it's internal and external. We're I'm involved in a business that sells farm equipment, and anyway, the people that work for us or contract us, they delivered a piece of equipment. It was about, I think, 3 hours away from our location. He delivered it there on a Friday, and we have a person on site that we kind of call him our quality control manager. He does everything from cut grass to inspect equipment to make sure everything's proper. He's a very talented older gentleman, been around for this organization, I think, for 16 years. But what really struck me is he came to me, this was a Friday, and then he came to me Monday afternoon and he just said, hey, I phoned the customer this morning and I just asked him if everything was okay. And it's not really his job. I mean, it's anybody's job, right? But he was never asked to. It's not something that normally happens, but it's a really good idea. And he said, yeah, I just want to phone, make sure everything's okay. And the other thing is we forgot to send along one part. And I just wanted to let you know that we will be shipping it out to you. Well, this person didn't even know that the part had been short shipped. And so to me, that's kind of an internal, external, both ways, right? And I was so impressed that this person would on its own take that upon himself to just check and see. And I think, again, that's another example of, the right people, having the right people in your team that have that mindset of taking care of people. And then he's the same person, and internally, the salespeople will call him, hey, I've got a customer coming in to look at this and this tractor. Can you bring it inside the display room? It's 30 below outside. Can you bring it in for me? And oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. Right. So he's well liked internally and externally that way. So I think that's just a very good attribute to have, where you're serving not just outside people, but also the people that you work with.
Great, Randy. Thank you very much for sharing that additional example here about Bob. That's terrific. Customers, sometimes they'll miss things, but we're aware of something that we have messed up on. And I think it serves our organizations well when we go the extra mile and do the things that perhaps we know should have been done in the first place, but it just shows an extra level of customer attention and the importance that we place upon that relationship that we have with those that we serve. So we've gone through 2 questions here with our panel, and Gord, I don't know if we've got any questions that have come in from the chat feature. I didn't see any there myself. So I'm just going to remind our participants here that if you do have a question that you'd like to put to any of the panel members, please add it into the chat feature, and Gord will let us know when we have something there that we can put to the panel. But maybe let's move on to the third question that I have for the panel. And Randy, I'm going to come back to you again with this one here. But for the follower of Jesus Christ, Randy, can you help us understand what delivering customer service excellence might look like in daily life and practice? It's often the daily routine that we get bogged down, or we aren't necessarily aware of that dynamic that we have as ambassadors of Jesus Christ in the marketplace. And perhaps that's something we need to be a little more sensitive to and conscious of, the role that we have as believers. But Randy, what would you say might be helpful in this aspect?
follower of Jesus, and when the way you carry yourself, the way you handle other people, the way you talk, I think it's critical that I mean, we can't be like Jesus, but we want to be like Jesus. Most of us at least do. I'd love to be like Jesus. Try as hard as you can. And I think it's very important. Most people that get to know you, they will realize you're a Christian. In some fashion, they'll figure that out. And so then when you don't actually exhibit those values, then let's be blunt, you're a hypocrite. And I had this conversation with a young gentleman years ago, and I was encouraging him to become a Christian and give his heart to Jesus. And he says, well, I don't really know if I want to. Well, why wouldn't you want to? Well, the last guy I worked for, he said he was a Christian, but he would yell and swear at me all the time. So I don't want to be like him, right? And because that's what he saw. And many people, unfortunately, actually don't hang out with Christians and don't even know any Christians very often. So we have a huge responsibility in presenting ourselves in a light. And for example, I was with a customer yesterday, and it was very interesting. His language is quite different than us, but his heart is the same. And he wasn't a follower, but it was fascinating listening to him. And then he started talking about how his mother, when he was a young boy, took him to church and started talking about end times. And anyway, it was just fascinating. This, he was now in his 60s, and this came, he was thinking about it and just looking at how the world was right now. And I said, yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of, some of that stuff is coming true now, isn't it? Right. So it wasn't out there preaching, but just being able to speak to the situation. So yeah, we got it. It's very important. And I'm always reminding myself when I get annoyed, okay, Randy, you might be annoyed, but it's no time to not act proper.
Even when we think no one is watching, the Lord is watching. So how we respond to others, how we interact, or how we react, or are we proactive maybe? These are important considerations every day. Jordan, let's come to you. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, in real estate, I work with people who are making sizable purchases, as you know, on large life decisions. So I like to take the approach of, what would I do if I were in their shoes? And I like to assess each situation a little bit differently in that sense. I also like to, approach each and every client as a relationship and not a paycheck. When I graduated from King's, I don't know how I did it. Well, I do know how I did it, but I somehow managed to graduate with over 50,000 in savings. And so I had a big nest egg going into real estate, because in my first year in real estate, I made, next to nothing. It's a very hard a career path or business to get into, a lot of expenses. So, but I wanted to have that money there because I never wanted a client to feel forced into purchasing a property or selling a property just because I was hungry for a paycheck. So I've always kind of made sure that I had my own financial house in order because I didn't want to be that guy. I've gone as far as talking people out of buying or selling properties because of timing or financing or life circumstances aren't really right. I've prayed with clients at dining room table, living rooms, over the phone. As a realtor, I'm kind of a counselor as well. I deal with death, divorce, bankruptcy, job loss, illness. I've seen things from, getting a call from clients saying that someone's committed suicide in properties, things like that. So there's a lot of different things that happen in the world of real estate that a lot of people don't hear about. they're not always fun, but we have to take that approach and just really really connect with people and show them the faith and show them who we are. So
yeah, those are real life issues that I hadn't even thought about that, Jordan, in terms of, some of the challenging situations that your clientele face, and you become one of the players that they interact with, and, that you can pray with them and be there as a shoulder, as someone that they can confide in. That's a powerful position that the Lord has given to you to interact with people.
Yeah, a lot of the times when dealing with people, it's not always because we're moving because we got a promotion, or we're moving because it's usually, so and so lost their job, so we need to downsize and we have to go rent, or so there's a lot of different things, especially this last year with COVID. I mean, I had people, had one guy, they won a property in a multiple offer, and I actually convinced the seller to accept the lowest offer, and because they really liked the young couple. And then the couple, one of them got laid off like right before condition removal. So it's tough out there right now. So
For sure. Tony, let's flip over to you.
All right. From a practical perspective, I think in a daily basis, customer service excellence means that we are, in everything we do, we're professional, we're patient, and we put people first. Again, a Bible reference for this is, Matthew 7 says, whoever you treat as you want to be treated. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's a biblical perspective that carries over into, everyday life, but certainly in business. And, I just listened yesterday to a pastor in the States somewhere, and he was talking about just how we get caught up in our culture and consumerism, and our identity is tied up in, what we own and what we purchase. We're really, we believe in a God who is, first of all, generous, who is giving, right? And he used the example of verse that we're all familiar with is John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, right? I mean, that's a picture of not just God being love, but God being a giver. And I think if we translate that into business in a practical perspective, we put people first, we treat people the way we want to be treated. I think about all the stories that we've told so far, the examples of good customer service. It's people going the extra mile, right? It's building relationship. It's being that representative, that ambassador to reflect Christ's character to others. And so I think a big part of that is how do we give, and not just give of our product, but how do we give? And it's Jordan's building relationship with clients selling houses. That is giving. That's putting ourselves out there and going the extra mile. Because you could, Jordan, in the work that you do, I've worked with a number of realtors. It can be all business, and there's no human interaction there. And even in the ministry that I do, the role that I have is very pastoral, but it could also be very business focused, where it's just calling people and saying thank you and expecting them to give another donation to support ministry. Thankfully, I work for a ministry that is very relational in that we don't even ask. We connect with people and say, how can I come alongside you? How can I make your day brighter? How can I pray for you? And I think that translates in our businesses too. If we do it well, we have an opportunity to, I think it was a Catholic priest, was it St. Augustine, that was credited with the words, share the gospel with everyone, and when necessary, use words. I think that's a good illustration of what it means as a Christ follower to exhibit good customer service.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, a couple of you have mentioned or alluded to this aspect of thinking about. I was just thinking as you guys were talking, the phrase "What would Jesus do in any particular circumstance?" And Tony, I think it was you that had mentioned, or sorry, maybe it was Jordan. But what would I do? I think that was Jordan had said that. What would I do in a situation, putting yourself into the shoes of your customer, your client that you're working with? But yeah, it's a powerful thing. Earlier today, I had a phone conversation with a fellow who felt an urge within his heart to make contact with someone in another province. And after he made that call, it happened that there was opportunity for both parties to win. Now, my friend, of course, is a believer, but I'm not sure if the party on the other end was. But the fact was, it was a connection reaching out as he felt an urging in his heart to reach out to the person. And it's the building of a relationship that leads to the opportunity to open the door to more things that would be deeper on the spiritual side. So the Lord has a way of using us in challenging times as well as the good times. So I think we've got about 7 minutes or so before we kind of move into a wrap-up stage, I believe, something along that line. And we've got just a couple of questions here. So maybe quickly, if we could switch to the next question. It's rebuilding a relationship. Like, things do not always go the way that we would like them to go. Sometimes we blow it, we make mistakes, we stumble. But how do we take that step as a follower of Christ to try to make things right when things do go a little sideways? So let's come to Randy on this one, if I could. Randy?
To me, it again boils down to number one is you own up to the mistake, or own up to the misunderstanding, whatever it is that went wrong. Hey, I understand and I acknowledge it and I'm sorry. And depending on the situation, can you forgive me? Or we're really sorry it happened. How can we correct this and make it right? And I can tell you from experience that some of the most loyal customers you can get are the ones that you take care of properly when you've done something wrong. And I think everybody acknowledges there will be mistakes, or there will be misunderstandings, there will be things that don't go well. It's how you handle them. And again, own up to the problem, apologize and correct it. And you'll be surprised sometimes at what a loyal customer you get.
Jordan, I'm going to pop over to you. What would you respond to this, making it right?
Yeah, just facing it head on and admitting that there was an issue, correcting it, and just working towards providing that better service and communication. Because most of the time it's just something went wrong with communication. So you've got to dial it back in and figure out where you went wrong in your communication. So,
Tony, communication's a big part of what you've been involved in. How would you respond?
Not a whole lot else to add to that. Take ownership of the problem, and it goes back to that honesty issue. Because I work in ministry, I was looking for a biblical reference that would be applicable to this, because, the Bible speaks to every aspect of life. And I actually came across a verse in Hosea 12 that talks about how a businessman loves to cheat, and they use dishonest scales. And really the whole premise of that is, they're dishonest, but they've never done anything unlawful, so they can't really be accused. And I think, again, as believers, we have an opportunity where, it may be right, but is it fair? And so if we've made a mistake or done something wrong, we need to own up to it. and not just say, well, I mean, it can't be accused. I think again, the Bible and, the way we live as believers, there's a moral code that we live by that's more important than business aspirations. And so owning up to our problems and acknowledging it and making it right, I think is that's an important thing to do, important way to live.
Mm-hmm. The aspect of going the extra mile certainly falls into this here too.
Yeah.
So if we've messed up somehow, go above and beyond. We should have gone above and beyond probably initially, but if we missed the opportunity, here's a second chance perhaps to win the favor of that customer, restore a relationship, and allow opportunity for the future. I'm not sure what the stats are, but when people receive bad or poor customer service, what's the natural inclination? You're going to probably tell other people, and you're probably not going to let the organization or the store that did you wrong know, at least not initially. You might go back and blow up, and maybe that's not the right thing to do either. But more often than not, people are going to talk about the bad experience that they have had than about the good. I don't know.
Yes.
It seems to be human nature.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and if anybody's looking for a moving company, boy, do I have a bad experience to tell you about my move
We'll
from
have bad
Surrey. Yeah.
We'll have stories like that are the bad experience. And sometimes we let them loose. Yeah. Okay, the last area that I wanted to just touch on here, and Gord, maybe I'll just check with you. Is there anything that's come into the chat in terms of questions?
No, I have one if we have time at the end.
Okay, so let's see how that goes then. Thanks, Gord. The final question that I have for the panel members would be this: what advice would you share to help us improve the quality of our own customer service excellence and that of our business or organization? So what advice would you share to improve the quality of our own customer service excellence? So Tony, let me go to you first, please.
Boy, how do we add? I think it's just we have again, not to go back to that in a light way, but we have an opportunity to reflect the things that are important to us as believers. And so, as a biblical concept, I would go to 2 Peter 1, verses 5 and 6, where it says, "For this reason, make every effort to add to your faith excellence, and adding to excellence knowledge, to knowledge self-control, self-control perseverance, and perseverance godliness." But it starts with excellence. And it starts with everything that we do it as if it's unto God. It's we have a short opportunity here in life to really to share Jesus with people, because other than that, in our short existence, none of it really makes sense. Whether you sell a house or whether you work at a bank, or for me, whether I work in ministry, none of it really matters. Really what matters is how we impact people's lives for Christ. And so we have an opportunity to do that in business, in every aspect of our life. And so that I think is how we just make that, if that is a priority, that becomes habitual, right? We live out the fruits of the Spirit.
Excellent. Randy, let's come to you.
There are several things that we can do, and I think one of them, probably the most important one, is that the people, and if you're one person business, that's fine, that you need to have a passion of wanting to help people and wanting to do things properly and professionally, but also being sincere. You can meet with someone or run into a salesperson, and you can tell they're just there just to put in time, and they're not really very sincere. It's being sincere. And yeah, you're not going to love everybody you deal with or whatever, but you care for them, And then if you have more people with you, then you need to explain to them and train them about customer service, and then empower them. And I think that, the lady with the Diet Coke at McDonald's, in some instances, probably she should have been told, well, just give it to the person, right? You don't really have to ask for permission. But having said that, she was trained enough to go and ask, right? Like, was a little mom and pop store, often the owners or the right-hand people are doing it. So, but I think it's that culture. Okay, we want to take care of customers. We want to take care of them in whichever way it is. If it's a hot summer day, maybe there's a bottle of water for them. And that it's the little things that really make a difference. And just getting that culture and making sure and this kind of the passion that, man, I really would like him or her to be happy when we're done, and work on that.
Focusing on not so little things, real estate. Jordan, what would you suggest?
Okay, it's a different approach, I guess, but don't always put your customer first. You should serve them and provide excellent customer service. However, if you can't put yourself first and your own unit, yourself and your family first, and be there for your family, your loved ones, your close friends, and just to be fresh and on your game, you're not really going to be 100%, and you're not going to be able to provide customer service. So I know this right now because I'm working way too many hours and I could probably use a day off. So yeah, that's kind of my own take on it. To help improve customer service excellence is to just make sure you budget time for yourself, whether it be having a nap or going for a walk or whatever that might be.
Excellent. Well, thank you to all three of our panel members. Gord, was there something you wanted to jump in on?
Steve Jobs never used to do market research because he said customers don't know what they need or can use, but I do. And so when you have situations where a customer doesn't really know the product or what is in their best interest, and I was buying my first house, I made all kinds of, or would have made all kinds of mistakes if the realtor hadn't talked me out of a whole bunch of what, in retrospect, were kind of dumb ideas. So how do you deal with situations where the customer service excellence would be, contradicting the customer when they don't really know what's in their best interest? How do you provide customer service excellence in that scenario?
Yeah, I think from my experience, what I've tried to do is to point out options for consideration by the individual, and ultimately let the customer or the client I'm working with make the decision as to which way they would be going. So I kind of see that as a bit of a facilitation role with the people I interact with. Is let's try to explore this a little bit and see what might work, and then you decide what you would like to do to move it forward.
Yeah, I've actually, many years ago, I worked in the motorsport industry, and I had customers coming in looking for specific stuff where I've actually given them the name and number of a competitor and said, check them out because they may have what you're looking for. And what I found is 9 times out of 10, those people end up being very loyal customers because they feel like there's, it goes back to that relationship thing again, right? They feel like you're actually looking out for their best interests.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you to all of you. And Gord, thank you for adding your perspective there with that observation and question. Thank you to each of you for contributing to what we've taken away from tonight's session.
Thanks for being with us. We trust you found this to be helpful. And if so, please give us a like, a follow, and a share. The Bible says in Matthew, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. If you're launching or growing a business, a ministry area, or a special project, or if you're involved in helping them as a resource or service provider, we'd love to have you participate with us. Stay informed of upcoming events and items of interest by subscribing to the Marketplace Ministries Update, sent out periodically. May God bless you as you do your best to faithfully represent Jesus Christ in the marketplaces of life.